Silas Blackwood was a man of words. He had a way of speaking that made you lean in. He made you believe things you never thought you would. He showed up in Arizona not with a lot of money, but with a big idea. He saw the empty spaces, the wide open desert. He saw opportunity. He started talking about freedom. He talked about a place where people could live without all the rules, without big government telling them what to do. He spent his days in small towns. He went to coffee shops. He found people at hardware stores. He just talked to anyone who would listen. He was smooth. He asked about their lives. He asked what bothered them. He always nodded. He always made eye contact. He made you feel heard. Then he would drop hints about his plan. He called it Terra Nova, a new land, a new beginning. Silas said Terra Nova would be a country, its own country, right here in Arizona. He said it would be free. No taxes, no building codes, just people living off the land together. He spoke about self-reliance, he spoke about community, he spoke about a place where hard work paid off directly. No middleman, no government taking its cut. He found some land, it was remote, it was dry. Most people would call it barren, but Silas saw something else. He saw potential. He found land that was cheap, very cheap. Some of it was public land. He just started claiming it. He said he was establishing a new sovereign state. He told people the land was theirs. He said they just needed to come join him. He built a small shed. He put up a flag. It was a simple flag, green and gold. It had a sunburst design. He called it the flag of Terra Nova. He took pictures, he posted them online, he made a simple website, it looked official. It talked about the rights of sovereign nations, it had long, legal-sounding words. Most people did not understand them, but they sounded important. Silas held meetings. He started in people's living rooms. Then he moved to small community halls. He showed maps. He drew out plans for a town. He talked about a new school. He talked about a clinic. He talked about clean energy. He painted a picture of a perfect life, a life away from the city. A life where you were truly free. He attracted a certain type of person, people who felt left behind. People who felt forgotten. People who distrusted authority. People who had dreams of a simpler life. Some were older. They wanted to stretch their retirement savings. Some were younger. They wanted to escape debt. Some just wanted a new adventure. They all had one thing in common. They wanted to believe. Silas told them about the cost. It was not much, a one-time fee to become a citizen. Then, a small fee for your land parcel. He said it was just for the legal work, for setting up the nation, for building the roads. He said it was an investment in your future, an investment in freedom. People opened their wallets, they wrote checks, they handed over cash. They trusted Silas. He had that kind of charm. He made you feel like you were part of something big, something special. He promised them a paradise, a desert paradise, a place where their kids could grow up free. A place where they could truly own their own home. A place where they could build something with their own hands. He made it sound like the last frontier. A chance to start over. A chance to be part of history. And many people bought it. They bought into the dream. They packed up their lives. They headed for the Arizona desert. They were ready for Terra Nova, and so the first people started to arrive. They came with old RVs. They came with tents. They came with a lot of hope. They had been told there would be basic infrastructure. There's a well, maybe some power, but when they got there, it was just the desert, just scrub brush, just empty land. Silas was there. He greeted them with a smile. He pointed them to their plots. He told them the hard work was about to begin. He said they were the pioneers. He said they were the founders of a new nation. He made them feel special. He made them feel important. He kept the dream alive. Building Terra Nova was not easy. The desert was harsh. The sun beat down. The dust blew. But the early settlers were motivated. They believed in Silas. They believed in the dream. They pooled their money. They bought a used well-drilling rig. They worked together. They dug for water. It was hard labor. They started small gardens. They tried to make things grow in the dry soil. Silas had promised them tools. He had promised resources. Those things were slow to appear. He had an excuse for everything. The supply chain was complex. The new nation had to be careful with its finances. He told them the government was trying to stop them. That was why things were difficult. This made people feel like they were part of a struggle, a fight for freedom. It made them work harder. They built simple structures. Some were shacks, some were tiny homes on wheels. They made a communal dining area. It was just a big tent at first. They shared what they had, they ate together, they talked about their plans. They drew maps of their new town. They imagined a future city rising from the dust. When Silas would visit often, he would walk through the camp, he would shake hands, he would offer encouragement. He would talk about the future, about the grand plans he still had. He always had a new vision, a new project. He introduced the Terra Nova dollar. It was paper money. It had his picture on it. It had symbols of freedom and industry. He said it was backed by the land. He said it would be accepted within Terra Nova. People traded goods and services using this currency. They bought groceries from a small makeshift store he set up. The store only accepted Terra Nova dollars. This made people feel like they were truly separate. Like they were truly building something unique. Silas also sold more citizenships. He expanded his advertising. He put ads in alternative lifestyle magazines. He spoke on fringe radio shows. He talked about a place where freedom was real. He talked about escaping the system. More people arrived. They bought into the vision. They bought into the land. They brought more money. Silas kept taking it. He told them it was for the common good, for the development of the nation. He started a government. He appointed people to roles. A minister of agriculture, a minister of defense, a minister of education. These were just titles. They had no real power. Silas made all the decisions. But it gave people a sense of purpose, a sense of belonging. They felt like they were part of something important. They held meetings, they discussed policies for their new nation. They debated things like water rights and land use. It felt very real to them. He had a small security force. Men who were fiercely loyal to him. They wore matching uniforms. They carried firearms. They patrolled the perimeter. Silas said they were protecting Terra Nova from outside threats, from the government, from people who wanted to shut them down. This added to the sense of urgency, the sense of danger. It made people feel even more like they needed to stick together. It made them trust Silas even more. He was their protector. He was their leader. Some people even sold their homes in the outside world. They put all their savings into Terra Nova. They believed in Silas completely. They were all in. They thought they were building a legacy, a place for their children and grandchildren. They saw the hardships as temporary. They saw the struggles as part of the process. They were pioneers. They were willing to sacrifice for their new country. Silas would sometimes disappear for days. He would say he was on diplomatic missions. He said he was meeting with foreign powers or he was securing new supplies. He always came back with new stories, new promises, new energy. He would rally the people. He would remind them of their shared vision. He would rekindle their hope. He was good at that. He was very good at making people believe. He made them feel like they were on the cusp of something truly great, a new world rising from the desert dust. But slowly, problems started to show up, small cracks in the grand vision. The well sometimes ran dry. The solar panels he had promised were often broken or never arrived. The communal gardens struggled in the harsh desert. People started to get sick. The clinic he had promised was still just a tent with some first aid supplies. There was no real doctor. Some people started to question things. They asked Silas where their money went. They asked why the promised infrastructure was not there. Silas had answers. He said the state government was interfering. He said they were trying to sabotage Terra Nova. He said they were jealous of their freedom. He blamed outside forces for every problem. This worked for a while. It made people feel like they were under attack. It strengthened their resolve. But then, the news started to spread beyond their little community. Local news channels got wind of a strange group in the desert. Reporters came out. They asked questions. Silas refused to speak to them. He sent his security force to turn them away. He told the citizens not to talk to outsiders. He said the media was biased. He said they wanted to destroy Terra Nova. This created fear. Some people started to feel trapped. They had invested everything. They had nowhere else to go. They were stuck in the desert with no money, with no real homes, and with a leader who was starting to seem less like a visionary and more like a dictator. Dissent began to bubble up, quietly at first, in hushed conversations around campfires. A few brave people spoke up at a town meeting. They questioned Silas's authority. They asked for financial transparency. They asked for proof of his diplomatic missions. Silas grew angry. He called them traitors. He said they were working for the enemy. He used his security force to intimidate them. He threatened to expel them from Terra Nova. He said they would lose their land. They would lose their investment. This scared most people into silence. But the seeds of doubt had been planted. People started to realize they did not truly own their land. They had only paid Silas for a piece of paper, a certificate. It was not a real deed. It had no legal standing. The Terra Nova dollar was worthless outside their camp. They could not buy anything with it in the real world. Their savings were gone, swallowed by Silas's dream. And the authorities started to take notice. The local sheriff's department, the county planning office. They sent notices. They said the structures were illegal. They said the land claims were invalid. They said Silas was operating an unregistered business. Silas ignored them. He told his followers these were just scare tactics. He told them to stand firm. He told them to resist. But the reality of their situation was becoming clearer. They were living in illegal structures, on land they did not own, using a currency that was fake. They were isolated, they were vulnerable, and their leader Silas was becoming more erratic. He spent less time with the people. He stayed in his compound, he sent messages through his loyal security team. The dream was turning into a nightmare for many. The promise of freedom was becoming a cage. Then things really started to fall apart. The first arrest warrants arrived. Not for Silas, not yet. But for some of his key people, his ministers. They were charged with various offenses: unlawful construction, operating without permits, impersonating public officials. The security force tried to resist, but the county sheriff's deputies were professional. They were backed by the law. They were not easily deterred. Silas saw the writing on the wall. He became desperate. He called for a rally. He told everyone to prepare for a siege. He said the government was coming to destroy their freedom. He told them they needed to fight. He tried to whip up a frenzy. Some of his most loyal followers were ready to stand with him. They grabbed their weapons. They dug trenches. They prepared to defend Terra Nova. But many others were done. They had seen enough. They had lost too much. They had realized they were being conned. They began to pack their few belongings. They tried to leave. Silas's security force tried to stop them. They said leaving was an act of treason. They said they would lose everything, but people were leaving anyway. They walked away from their dreams. They walked away from their investments. They just wanted out. The sheriff's department organized a larger operation. They came with more deputies. They came with federal agents. The charges against Silas were mounting: fraud, conspiracy, unlawful land use, selling unregistered securities. It was a long list. They had warrants for his arrest. They surrounded the compound. Silas refused to surrender. He barricaded himself inside his main building. He still had a few loyal people with him. He tried to negotiate. He demanded diplomatic immunity. He claimed to be the head of a sovereign state. No one took him seriously. The authorities had heard it all before. They had seen similar situations. They breached the building. There was a brief struggle. Silas was apprehended. He was defiant even then. He yelled about tyranny. He yelled about freedom. He yelled that they were destroying a nation, but his words were empty. His charm was gone. He was just a man in handcuffs. The news crews were there. They filmed everything. The remaining settlers watched in shock. Some cried. Some were angry. Some were just numb. Their dream had evaporated. Their country had dissolved in a puff of dust, and the man who had promised them everything was being led away. The security force disbanded. Many of them were arrested too. They were charged with various offenses: impersonation, unlawful detention, firearms charges. The whole operation collapsed. The flags of Terra Nova were taken down. The Terra Nova dollars became souvenirs, worthless pieces of paper. The desert reclaimed the land. What little infrastructure was there started to crumble. It became a ghost town, a monument to a broken dream. Silas Blackwood went to trial. It was a long trial. Many of the former citizens of Terra Nova testified against him. They told their stories. They talked about their lost savings, their broken hopes, their shattered lives. They spoke about how he had manipulated them, how he had played on their desires for freedom and community, how he had used their trust against them. Silas maintained his innocence. He claimed he was a political prisoner. He claimed he was a visionary being persecuted. He claimed Terra Nova was real. He used all his old tricks, but this time they did not work. The jury saw through him. The judge saw through him. He was convicted on multiple counts: fraud, grand larceny, conspiracy. He was sentenced to many years in prison. The aftermath for the people who had lived in Terra Nova was devastating. Many lost everything: their homes, their money, their sense of purpose. Some had nowhere to go. They had alienated their families and friends by moving to the desert. They were too proud or too ashamed to ask for help. Social services stepped in. They helped some people get back on their feet. But for many, the scars remained. They struggled with trust. They struggled with bitterness. They struggled with poverty. The land where Terra Nova stood became a desolate reminder. The crude buildings were eventually torn down. The well was capped. The flag was gone. Had nature slowly erased the traces of the failed experiment. It returned to being just another empty stretch of Arizona desert. But the story of Silas Blackwood and Terra Nova served as a warning. It showed how easily people can be swayed, how easily hope can be exploited. It showed that the desire for freedom, for community, for a simpler life can be twisted into something dangerous. It taught a hard lesson about looking deeper, about questioning grand promises, about the difference between a dream and a con. The story reminds us that if something sounds too good to be true, it probably is. It tells us to be careful where we put our trust, especially when someone promises a whole new world, a whole new country, created out of nothing but words and out of the desert dust. It was a costly lesson for many, a lesson learned with shattered lives and empty pockets, a lesson in the very real power of a charismatic conman.